Fortunately, sometimes I click on things,
Get
and now
Mark
it thinks
gonna
that I'm afraid of being poisoned. So it keeps saying these ice creams have been recalled in these 8 states, and it's never any ice cream I've heard of, and it's never the state.
What do I have? Quiz. What are the new seven wonders of the world? Okay. That sounds nice.
It's Donald Trump, the January 6th. Anyway, whatever.
New Jersey gamer grudge attack.
It's that.
Hmm.
What kind of
Anyway,
grudge?
I've never looked at my Windows Start menu. Okay, that's
It's
exciting.
terrible. I just want to see the weather sometimes.
Hmm.
And then it's
I
like,
never
hey,
Look
want to look at it,
outside.
but it just opens.
When I
yeah,
turned on my computer, it was like stuck in Facebook. Like there was no taskbar or anything. I ended up having to go to Task Manager and closing Safari. I was like, why did Facebook take over my computer? You'd hit escape and
it's
like nothing would happen.
and shitification.
Yeah. It was weird. Okay. Let's
Maybe I
do
should become
this.
a Linux bro.
Yeah, yeah.
Dude, I honestly I'd installed Ubuntu in a laptop just for for a for a purpose, for a reason to do something, some hacking, and it fucking rules. I think Linux is fucking great. I'm just lazy.
I'm just not good at computers.
Yeah, so no numbers for you today. You don't get a number.
Mark, how old will you be on this birthday?
47. You make a
Oh,
Star Trek
oh,
joke.
that's a good fun number.
In at birthday number 47. Mark's allowed to watch a blue movie because he's a grown-up now.
Ooh,
Ooh, there
happy
we
grown-up day.
yay. I am turning 47, and the director of this movie that is one of my favorite movies died when he was 46. And I
Right.
Oh,
realized that when I was looking up
you
things for this, and it
win.
made me, yes, now I am Satoshi Kon. How are you? No, this that made me really sad because he died of pancreatic cancer, which has killed two of my friends in the past year. And I was in the hospital for pancreatitis, but I'm fine, and now I have survivor's guilt.
Hmm.
Anyway, that has nothing to do with this movie, but
I was gonna joke you got conned, but now that sounds like not. I don't know. Something
And
about
yet
that
Matt
doesn't
found
work
a way
now.
to have his cake and eat it anyway.
I didn't get any cake last night. It was my wife's
yeah.
birthday. I thought there'd be cake, but there was no cake. She probably said no cake,
Hmm.
and I didn't get a
Oh,
cake. That's fine.
you
Hmm.
can just sneak a cake at the convenience store behind the store in the alley.
I told her no ice cream on Monday because she already ate
Oh,
ice cake an hour earlier. You can't have ice cream an hour after ice cake, can you?
nah,
Why not?
sure. It's your birthday. Um, I am being nice to my pancreas by not eating ice cream ever again, but I'm fine with that. I'm still sad that we only got 4 Satoshi Kon movies.
Yes,
I
I
was
still.
just I was just looking up pictures of Satoshi Kon. My opinion of him would have changed drastically if he was a fat man.
he, it's funny. He kind of looks like someone who would be into jam bands. I
I
don't know
just
what
think
that.
his treatment of fat characters made me think I would think differently of this if you were fat,
Mm.
but he's not. He's
Yeah,
pretty average.
Oh yeah, he's
it's
quite. I see your jam band thing there. Okay. Um, I should introduce this podcast, shouldn't I? It's Films and
yes.
Filth. It's a birthday one. I guess this is real close to the film list though. 8.0. Our stuff starts at 8.2 or 3, so we're right on the line here, you know. There's lots of movies that should make the line and don't, as we've discussed before. Matt here, who's
Hi,
there?
Mark.
I am Luke.
Waiting for that. Okay, Perfect Blue. Yeah, Con's always been on the should have watched or need to watch list and haven't watched. So I got around to this one. I guess I'll get Paprika in soon because I've been meaning to watch Paprika for what, 15 years now?
Oh, yeah, I remember I watched Paprika when we did an Inception podcast. I had it in my head that we'd done a Paprika podcast, but we didn't.
No, I haven't seen it yet, but it's like an hour. I can handle that, right? This one's like now hour
Oh,
20. Talk,
It's
yeah.
also incredible.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, that helps as well. I'm just saying it's real nice when you start a movie and the runtime's like 90 minutes or less, you know?
Hmm.
It packs a lot into that also. But apparently Paprika was kind of the movie he always wanted to make, so he kind of had that in the back of his head when he made this, which makes a lot of sense because this
Which
gets
sounds like this is
real.
absolutely not the movie he wanted to make. He did not want to make something about idols or make a horror movie. So,
Well, basically he was working on this movie when it was still a live action movie, and all this funding pulled out and it became an anime. I cannot imagine it being. I feel like if it was a live action movie we would never have heard about it.
Yes, but I also that does make a lot of sense to me because watching it, I was like, until the like last 10 minutes, there's not really anything here that needs to be animated.
Yeah, and at the same time, they do so much with, well, we can put her on this screen or in this window without,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The
having to do
way they
camera
can,
tricks.
yeah, the way they can cut between, like, do James Cameron cuts, but like more perfect than you could ever do with live action.
It's fun because it feels like something that would be it's like a low budget anime is capable of more than a high budget film, which
Hmm.
Well, it's kind of a little
but
movie I could, because I mean, it was going to be like kind of cheap direct to video live action. Then it's like going to be cheap direct to video animation. And then they're like, let's put this in some festivals, and people liked it. And then it became like a real movie.
yeah,
Mark, do you know what Satoshi Kon worked on prior to this movie, which got him noticed?
I wanted to ask what he did there.
it was a short film, but I don't know anything about it.
Not
Oh,
that.
it was an OVA series,
uh
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
oh, did he work on that? Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
not the anime that we have now, like
Yes,
the earlier one.
I
I
have
couldn't figure
watched
out what
the
he did
fight.
there, though. Was he just
He
like a
wrote the second half of the season and I guess directed it.
okay, yeah? Because I
Nice.
saw he did that. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. I guess we have both of them in the house, but yeah.
The OVA I remember has just insane dubbing, like really bad dubbing that to the point where it's funny, I think.
Hmm, that makes sense.
Don't watch that
But it's
version.
still, it looks great. Like the Jotaro Dio fight looks cool in that. I mean,
Okay.
obviously there's a ton of money. um Studio David had to make entire huge seasons with probably the same amount of money. But
Hmm.
Um, I looked at my daughter's. She's got the DVDs in a box, and I was looking for something because we found something used, and I feel dumb because I was like one, three, five, seven. Oh no, she's missing a bunch of them, and it turned out you just have to turn the box around because they're like filed one way than the other way. So
Hmm.
it felt stupid.
yeah.
I don't
Oh
know. That
yeah.
seems like an annoying way to file your stuff, though. But whatever.
Well, Japanese goes what, up and down? No, that's not right. Sometimes.
Yeah, it just
Japanese
felt.
it used to be able to go in every direction.
Oh man.
Um, and now they mostly actually do it. The manga does it right to left, but a lot of stuff does it left to right.
Yeah, if
Yeah,
if you
the
read
reason they
big
have
boy books.
there's the sound which can only come at the end of words, and they put it on the end of a lot of medicine names because people were getting confused which way to read them.
Ah, interesting.
Fun
I
little
think
fact.
you guys have picked up the tick of saying at the end of sentences, and I have picked that up from you. So it's just always happening. So anyway, this is the VHS of Perfect Blue. That is the first way I
Nice.
watched it. Was my girlfriend in 2002, or someone I was dating in 2002, let me borrow it and never got it back. And she's never going to listen to this, so I
You
guess
don't
I
know
get to
that.
keep it. I don't know if she does. You're welcome to it back. I'm not even gonna name you, but you can have it if you want. I'll even mail it to you. I don't
Not
care.
giving you a name.
I'm not giving you a name.
We are all subtitled for this. Is there a dub? There is a dub. I saw
Yes.
some American, not some white people names listed on it too. So
This is dubbed the
that's
VHS.
oh, that's dubbed. Okay, but were we all subtitles this time
Yeah,
around?
yeah, I watched the subtitled
I
one.
mean, I guess it doesn't
Yes.
matter. But how
I
is the
got
dubbing? Do
the
you remember how the
steelbook.
dubbing is? Ooh,
I remember it being pretty okay and
okay.
not stupid or funny.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean,
in a
that's the
good
kind
way.
of movie that you wouldn't end up like with a ridiculous dub. But sometimes people
Well,
do a crap job of things. So
it's inexplicable. I don't understand how dubbing works. Like I don't know how some things get dubbed the way they do, but or
Mm.
maybe people are just having fun with it, which is fine because some of that is some of my favorite ways to watch old kung fu movies is the silly dub. So
Yeah.
yeah, but,
Well, I assume when you're watching that, the dub is also not being done by native speakers. So it's just like three
yeah.
rounds of like getting it wrong.
I think when this was dubbed in like the late 90s, it was really anime was a very niche thing. It was probably not very many people even doing voiceovers.
Yeah, but this is
I would
about the time
assume.
where Disney started distributing some Ghibli and stuff. Like we're doing
Mhm.
Mononoke before or
No,
after or something.
this is like the time like Weinstein was distributing anime. I don't think this is quite into the
Yeah.
Disney period. Because I think they went back and
Yeah.
redubbed a lot of them later on,
Was it
the Ghibli
Mononoke
version.
2001?
It might have been 99. Anyway, Disney, like that was through Miramax, so it was kind of Disney,
Yeah.
not quite. But 2002 is where Disney straight up started distributing Ghibli, which
Hmm.
Oh.
I had to memorize that for my Disney podcast because I had the
Huh.
Ghibli films are on a slightly different list. I just had to like plan in my head, okay, after Lilo and Stitch, you do Son no Chihiro. So
Well, that was 97 was the original release, which is the same year as this. And I think this might have lost an award to it, or maybe won an award instead of it. They were pretty much contemporaries.
I guess
Uh
this is not a Luke question so much as a Mark question, but what was your anime temperature in '97? For me, I think anime was going over to our mutual friend's Dan's apartment at the time and seeing like ridiculously gory anime like Bow. And
yeah, I
that's what
was
I thought anime was.
Bao was distributed amongst us in high school. And that also the interestingly enough, that the original story for that was written by the guy who wrote the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure manga.
Oh, okay.
So that it kind of adds up. That was Luke. If you haven't seen this, it was like something like
Araki
Cyber
Sensei.
Weapon. Yes, Cyber Weapon something something Bow BAOH. It was
Hmm.
just like a guy gets some kind of worm goes in his brain and he gets superpowered and punches people into pink mist. So
Hmm.
Sick.
that's what I remember it. Yeah,
So
it was an
that's what I
OVA, but it was an incredibly violent OVA.
yeah.
Um,
So that I thought all anime was like that in the '90s, right?
well, I saw this in 2002, so I mean, this was after I'd seen Evangelion and Giant Robo, and I think trying to think, just whatever I could get at the video store. I was starting to get more into stuff, but this still, at the time I saw this, it blew my mind. There was like, oh, anime can be this. It can be like this trippy shit that is nothing to do with fantasy or robots or anything. And in fact,
Hmm.
nothing supernatural. I'm spoiler. There, you feel like there's something supernatural going on, and there just isn't, which is
That's interesting. I maybe because I knew some of the reputation or like the films that claimed to be inspired by it going in, I never felt there was a supernatural element. It felt in her head to me.
yeah. I mean
Yo, I
that's
mean,
you
we're
just don't really
chasing
know.
this after Requiem, right? So that has nothing
Yeah.
supernatural. So that's kind of on the
Oh,
mind. Aronofsky
oh,
did flavor this film, as we mentioned in that podcast. And
and correction, I was wrong. It's an urban legend that he bought the rights to remake Perfect Blue. He did not. He just copied it. And there's an
Denied
interesting
it.
interviewer Satoshi Kon says something about how he doesn't have any money and is bitter because Aronofsky has a ton of money and just sort of did what he called an homage. But for my money, I also think that The Fountain ripped off Millennium Actress.
haven't seen
Um,
Millennium Actress. I'll get back
Is
to you on
that
that. But yeah,
another con?
yes, I watched that this week, and I rewatched Tokyo Godfathers, which is a great Christmas movie.
so
I haven't
he's
seen
got
Paprika in
four
a while, but I have seen
movies.
it.
And what is
Yeah,
his TV show? Do you remember the name of the TV show?
Paranoia Agent,
There
which
we
I have
go.
not seen.
Yeah, 13
Well, I guess I've
episodes.
seen 50% of his movies already. I probably should just catch the other two.
It's
Yeah,
they're all
probably.
short, so it's
Yeah.
absolutely worth it, and I think you'll love them too, Luke.
Hmm. Oh, I'm sure I will.
Um,
Mark, can I sick the story of this one on you?
oh, okay. The story will go here. I forgot to write a story.
Okay, that's your birthday duty. Your
Yeah,
duty as a
this is
birthday
this is
boy.
not a
Yeah.
this is not an off
I
the
can
bonds one, I don't think.
Yeah.
no. Whoopsies. Okay.
Hmm.
Um.
Moving on.
Yeah.
No, it is funny though, because Mike Richards was our guest for Requiem for a Dream, and then I was talking to him last week, and so, oh yeah, I don't know, recommend a movie, Perfect Blue. I'm like, oh, funny you should mention that. We're doing that one next week. So
Yeah.
the suggestion took subconscious root in multiple people. Maybe all of our listeners went and watched Perfect Blue before we thought of doing a podcast on it. You know,
Here's hoping.
just as someone
Yeah.
writing your detailed diary on Live
Um.
Journal or
I
whatever.
th- I think this may be the movie that I bring for a birthday movie that has the greatest chance of making it onto the good list someday. Like it's
Hmm.
not there yet, but
It's
most
yeah,
of
it's just due like one little, you know, some YouTuber gives it a reappraisal and it picks up a little bit.
yeah, or just sometimes time just does it. I think.
Hmm.
But all of his movies are sort of in the 7, 8, high sevens range. So
when this
Yeah.
when this movie came out, that we Americans certainly knew nothing about like weird J-pop idol culture. How much of that is seeped into the States by now?
Oh, well, too much. No,
Okay.
not too much. A lot. Well, because it's just, now K-pop is very well known and people sort of know how that operates. And K-pop feels like a almost out of control version of J-pop, and I don't know how accurate that is, but
That
or maybe
seems right-ish.
extremely.
I feel like a J-pop act looks like slightly awkward sometimes, whereas the
Hmm.
K-pop is like precision dancing, and they're not a centimeter off. Where there's a little bit of derpiness in J-pop,
There's a
which
famous quote from I can't remember where I read it in a book about Japanese culture, but where one of these idols was like meeting young girls who want to become idols. And they were like, "Oh, is it hard to learn to dance?" And she's like, "Nah, to be honest, if you're bad at dancing, the guys find that cute though."
right.
Yeah,
But
that
K-pop,
makes
no
sense.
way. That doesn't have because they have what
No,
like
no, K-pop
military
is
boot camp for that or whatever.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think they're selling a slightly different product in K-pop,
Right,
to put
right.
it
I
put
mean,
it as crassly as possible.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of more American in a way. Like
Yeah,
J-pop definitely has like actual Japanese music. It feels like it's
Yeah,
infused
there's a
in there
lot
and
of
stuff.
English gets snuck into K-pop compared
Yeah,
to J-pop.
I got the occasional J-pop ones, but I was thinking like
No, but
idol
like in
culture.
J-pop, it's like it's English the Japanese people use,
Mm.
whereas K-pop will just switch to English for like a verse.
Yeah. Oh, right, right, right. But it does seem J-pop these days, like this kind of idol culture seems like a little bit lost in Japan, maybe because of K-pop. The past 5 years, it's been a complaint on the big Kohaku, the big New Year's music show, that there's not like a big central song for the year, because just for 50
Hmm.
years, there was always like one song that everyone knew that was the song of the year that gets played on Kohaku a lot. And the past few years, it's kind of like, yeah, it's all. I can't even think like what is 5 years. Maybe I'm getting older or whatever. That might be part of it too. But I'm like, who are even the big, J-pop acts these days?
Well, I think that's generally something that's happening in culture in the internet age. There is no like monoculture because everyone just finds their little niche.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
to people in the K-pop scene, these guys feel like the most famous people in the world and everyone knows their name. I couldn't name one of them. I don't know a single K-pop.
Yeah, if I try to name the characters, the members of BTS, I'm going to sound racist. So,
But to go
that's
back to this film, for when this came out, this is a very like they actually knew what they were talking about portrayal of the internet.
it's almost uh chilling how much
Navigator.
they got it. And in fact, even the last couple of times I've watched this years ago, I was like, oh, this is someone dealing with what soon everyone would have to deal with on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I've known people who just flipped out and stalked people who they didn't know on Facebook, and they're
Hmm.
just some guy.
I
Um,
guess I'm thinking just up to like 2015 or so, like the called idol culture you see in this movie seems still very strong in Japan, and like it lasted like longer than it should have, and now it's dissipating. I mean, I guess like CD stores in Japan, same thing, They're still kind of
yeah.
hanging around a little bit, but not really.
Well, I mean, so is so is the version of the internet in this movie, because now you'd see this now and it would be, oh, I'm on Twitter. You
Mm.
wouldn't be on like,
A little
mimoshouse.com.
Yeah, I guess the comparison would be that Digimon movie we watched a few years ago, which also had like weird early internet, imagery and stuff. This one being
mm.
more
Yeah.
accurate, right? It's got the actual sites and stuff, whereas that one was a little more fantastical. But
Yeah. I mean, even though I don't know if this is an interesting parallel or just a parallel, but the name of the character in the original book was I, who was also the name of the girl in the first Pokemon movie who was friends with Mewtwo. So
Mm.
maybe that influenced this. I'm not sure, or vice versa. I think the book predated the Pokemon movie, but actually, I think the
oh,
Pokemon movie is after this.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
after
it's
this,
around
so.
Yeah.
similar time, but yeah, a little after.
But yeah, what was I thinking of watching this coming just as a like here I am watching something that I heard a bit about in the past, but that's lots of Lynch. Mulholland Drive certainly came to mind. Mulholland Drive possibly being more supernatural or not. It's kind of hard to tell with that one.
Yeah.
Then Argento stuff, which would be supernatural.
Yeah. Cohn has cited mostly older stuff as an influence, but I think he was into David Lynch. Mulholland Drive was after this, right?
After this, yeah. I'm not
But
even saying it
but
was necessarily inspired
yeah,
by it. I just, like the
yeah.
cracked actress sort of vibe is similar.
It was funny
I
because I was
did
looking
get
up.
a little bit of what's the one we did fairly recently, the Hollywood one?
Oh, yes.
Something else
Sunset
drive. Sunset
Sunset
Boulevard, that's it.
Boulevard, Sunset
Sunset
Boulevard.
Boulevard, Other
Specifically
Street.
at the end, right? With the truck basically being the news cameras,
Yeah. Well,
slightly darker
interestingly,
version.
yeah, Millennium Actress is clearly influenced by that. It's like, I don't know. I don't want to get too far into the other movies. I just watched all of them just to watch all of them. Um, but that was the my first time watching that one, and it was pretty great. But
But I think
also it
that
was trippy.
this Matt, like you're bringing up idol culture, and that is of course relevant. But like this could apply to celebrity culture more generally as well.
Yeah, and
Like
also
it's about a
just
singer turned
women.
actress. Oh yeah, and also just
Yeah,
women.
women in
Yeah.
general. Yeah, it's kind of I know there's like some kind of problematic stuff in here, and it is generally weird that I guess it's of course it's weird that a bunch of guys are making this story, but at the same time, it's like that wasn't necessarily what he was trying to set out to do, and I feel like he's at least relatively kind to his star in this. But yeah, there's definitely this is definitely showcasing the problem of how a lot of times guys think that they have some kind of stake in woman actresses or just celebrities in general, and
Well,
that
even
sucks.
like you were saying earlier, just doesn't have to be a famous celebrity.
Hmm.
Like if the girl at the convenience store is cute, guys will create an entire backstory where she's in love with him, and
Yes.
then get annoyed when she doesn't match the version they created in their head.
Yes, for
Um,
sure.
I have a lot of friends who are girls who play games, and
Oh,
the way men will just completely like fantasize any girl who's into games as if like that's enough that we are destined to be together. That I like playing Call of Duty and so does she. It's like never mind any other compatibility or anything like that. They feel like that is what makes their ideal partner by itself, and they invent the rest in their heads. Is so common.
yes. Yeah, it says a lot that sort of the the way it's framed in the movie, it's like the fake Mima exists inside Mr. Memania's head
Mm-hmm.
as much as inside her, or maybe more than inside her head, where it's the point where he's like possessed, even though,
Well,
I do the
someone
guy.
specifically put it in both of their heads.
Yes. I have always felt a little weird about Rumi being the main villain of this.
Hmm.
Like it feels a little tacked on, and maybe, well, I don't know how I feel about it.
Yeah, I did write this is not a complaint, but this is a bit of a Scooby-Doo ending.
It's a little bit of a
Yeah.
film needs a twist sort of ending, right?
It's like everyone's dead, so someone has to be the murderer at this point.
Whoever's still living is the murderer. Yeah,
I
that
didn't
works.
necessarily mind that, but there was a little bit of. I think the film actually did it okay, but there was a danger at the end where she's like put the dress on and she's cavorting, saying she's the real one now. That like in the wrong hands, it would have been sort of pointing and laughing at her. Like, look at
Yeah.
this middle-aged, slightly overweight woman who thinks she can be beautiful. But I don't think the film does that.
No, the
Maybe it
film,
would have been
It
more of an issue if they'd done it live action.
yeah, because the film
yeah.
gives you very few
Yeah, it
glimpses of
shows
her as she
shows
actually
a version
is.
of
It's
her in her
showing,
head, right?
right, right. So,
I would bet that if it's in live action, they wouldn't even have gone there. I mean, it's just,
Hmm.
Japanese humor. Like Tokyo Godfathers has a little bit of like iffy stuff with
Or
queer
Paprika,
people,
right?
but
The
yeah,
the big overweight guy.
yeah, that's
The
just sort of
basically
a
the
thing.
plot of that film is her coming to the realization it's okay to like someone fat.
Yeah, it's Shallow Hal. No,
Yeah,
um,
as well as say 90s Hollywood's chock full of these issues too. It's not like this movie's like
yeah,
a one source place for a few bit of problematic things. I mean,
I guess I'm
yeah,
hounding on it more because Japan is still so fat phobic.
mm.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's one of those things where I love to just forgive it's somewhere else, but it's yeah, that doesn't make it necessarily a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I
Um
put some, some extra stock in this late 90s anime, basically because I came to Japan in 2004. And when you watch the late 90s anime, it's like a vision of something 2% different than what I popped into, which I don't know. It's kind of fascinating to spot the little differences.
Mm-hmm.
That sign looks a little different. Look at those supermarket prices. I can do that,
I
which
mean,
that's kind of fun, I guess.
I mean some of the stuff in children's cartoon Dragon Ball Z is insanely fucked up. Like just some of the unedited stuff.
Yeah. Well, like there's Crayon Shin-chan, which is just aired as like
Yeah.
morning children's entertainment here and was Adult Swim in the West.
Yes. I think it was even edited before it got here. I'm not really sure, but it
I
was
think they changed the
definitely on there.
jokes to be like more like American Ribald as opposed to
Yeah,
Japanese Ribald.
that's possible. Yeah,
I
it
think I've
also
heard that the
depends what you
dubbing
want.
doesn't necessarily translate the cartoon. They
No, I
might
don't think it does.
they make some new jokes.
But yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
basically it's considered like South Park adjacent
Yeah,
in the Western dub, whereas it's like I don't know what the kids watch.
but
It's
then
like
there
Phineas
was
and Ferb to Japanese kids.
yeah, then there was Super Milk Chan, which is an absurd show, and they dubbed it with not without changing any of the references. So sometimes she just says the name of a Japanese guy, and you're just like, okay. And the people hated that, but me and my friends loved it because you're just laughing at whatever it seemed like it was supposed to be funny. Uh,
You can make up a
uh,
funnier punchline, funnier than their punchline, maybe, because
I don't
you have to imagine who this guy is.
I don't need references.
Hmm. Um, last week I was teaching a high school student whose English is pretty good, and I mentioned I'd be watching this for the podcast or whatever, and
Mm.
so his response was, "I cannot recommend this movie to you." But it was kind of the Japanese
Yeah,
thing of like it's scary, so it's bad.
Mm.
yeah. I
I
if anything, it's like every time I watch this, I'm surprised at how hard it goes because it's like in my brain, it's kind of a more of a, the little points of you remember the idols dancing around, you remember being scared, you remember people being stabbed a couple of times, but
Mm.
man, it gets aggressive towards the end, like psychedelically aggressive.
Yep.
but yeah,
Just
I
does
mean,
his, knocks his head in with a hammer.
Yeah,
That was another one I wanted to bring up was Japan is even worse than the West for the old looks ugly so is evil trope,
yeah,
which this film is
yeah.
chock full of.
Yeah, it's like you don't think about Rumi's eyes being really, really far apart until the end. And you're like,
Hmm.
oh,
I
I
feel
get
like
it.
the more crazy she gets, the like further they drift apart until she's like a frog creature in some shots.
yeah, because
Yeah.
she looks pretty normal early in the movie. It definitely takes the ending when
But
she's
also
like,
like the way people are drawn in this, everyone's eyes are a little bit farther apart.
hmm.
So you're like, is that
Yeah.
an art style thing, or is she particularly weird? And then by the end, you're like, no, no, she's
He
a
definitely
little bit odd
draws
looking.
or his films have an art style that's definitely a little bit like weird, like
Yeah, yeah. It
regular
it it
dude.
lets some characters like be a little off model, definitely. Which I like. I hate like when you see a graphic of like how all the Disney princesses are the exact same person with a different haircut. But
Yeah,
like a
and
lot of
and
animes, it's just like, oh, this is the art style. We put different hairs on them, they become different characters. Whereas this is like real people. They look all different shapes and sizes.
yeah, and
Makes
and
the
Mima is
animation a lot more
not.
difficult. But I mean,
Yeah,
that's part of making an artistic movie, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I mean, and Mima looks like a regular person. That's part of how this works. And she's not like they're the idol group isn't like they're not fantastic singers. I guess this goes more with J-pop where they're sort of just singing in a natural voice and the songs are really catchy.
Yeah,
And
that's what it's all about.
Also, they make it
It's
clear this
almost
is
like
a
being
middling J-pop group. This is not like, a star attraction.
yeah, when they got 83rd in the top 100, that was like a big deal
yeah,
for them.
yeah. Yeah, and
But that's
apparently
the other
that
crazy thing is like there's like 1,000 J-pop groups, and some of them have like 40 members. So it's like one of our students, Matt, has recently become an quote unquote idol. And Momo's got like the I probably shouldn't drop people's names. She's got the clear file of this person on like the shelf behind her. But
yeah.
it's like that doesn't mean that she's like a famous superstar. That's just a job you can get in Japan.
And then
Well,
yeah, you get like this weird rabid following, even if it's only like 30 people, you know?
Yeah.
it's like our podcast.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We're like the
We've got those
83rd
We
best
have rabid
podcast.
stalker fans, yes.
Yeah, we
the,
probably
the,
do. They just haven't shown up yet.
Right.
When we
oh, they
do a
have on
live
Game
show,
Game Show, don't
they'll show
worry.
up. Well, you should have them on as contestants.
I do on the wreck. I'm talking about Smurf and Mats.
Nice.
Um, but I guess one change that did happen is in the 90s, it was still these, I mean, goes to a duo, and that's fine. Where the
Hmm.
the trend 15 years ago is now you have to have like 8,000 people in your group. Like
Hmm.
I get so it's like now each member like has like a little weird laser focused obsessive fan group, you know?
Yeah, each member is like a slightly different, very slight variation on the concept of cute to get the exact person who wants that character.
Yeah.
Well,
But
and
also, there's I feel like more common, not just in idol culture, but in a lot of music groups, right? Would be one person drops from a trio, you replace them. That's how you
Yeah,
end up with the ship of Theseus Sugar Babes, where all three members slowly were replaced and then formed a new band. And it's like, well, which one is the original Sugar Babes?
yeah, I just saw a Facebook post that said fake Sham 69 is touring the US using some of our pictures and some of Sham 69 is a different Sham 69, but they're using it's just oh god. Yeah, you have to if you like anything that's older than right now, you have to pay attention to who's actually in the band or who's in the group.
well, that's another thing in Japanese culture. Whatever's if it's not right now, it's old.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Like,
that used to be how everything was, and now it's kind of not like that anymore. I think feel like we're still learning to deal with that. Where we have stuff like here's 85-year-old Ghostbusters coming out again to fight Gozer again, but then also people are enraged at anything Star Wars that happens at all, and and also the Rolling Stones are still touring.
yeah. Well, I'm thinking musically though, the imagery, like, you know, going to university in the late 90s or whatever, people had Doors posters and Hendrix posters on the wall, you know, like actual old stuff, like when the stuff was like good, right? So, not necessarily late stage, like the Stones are 85 and falling over on stage now.
Yeah, but the thing is that well, the fun part of that is I do sometimes just meet people who are obsessed with bands that are not from their generation at
I
all.
think
Like
in
a
music, it's especially common
Mhm.
because like people like many different genres of music, and there tends to be one or two which are currently prominent. So if that's not your jam, you're going to go to older stuff
Yeah.
because it's
That
easier. It's
was
easier to find old stuff than it is to find like indie stuff.
I mean, with
it's true.
movies in Japan too, though, like you know, that's why there's like a new Draimon or Conan like every single year because people are like, I want the new one. I don't want the one from 10 years ago.
Yeah, there used to be a Pokemon every year. There hasn't been one since the pandemic.
Mm.
And you would notice like obviously they're not designed for you to watch all 20. So there's basically like three or four plots that they cycle through. And I'm sure the Doraemons and the
Probably do
Conans are
it more
basically the
so.
same. Yeah. Well, Conan, I mean, it's one plot. It's Conan solves a mystery, but
Right. With Draimon, it's like, well, 5 years down, it's like when we're planning summer school or whatever. It's like, well, if it's something from 5 years ago, no one that's doing it's going to remember it. We can do
yeah,
it
the
again,
kids
you
have
know?
cycled out. Yeah.
Right. I mean, older people can enjoy Draimon, but the target audience, of course, is probably like, you know, like 5 to 12 year olds.
I don't know. It's I find myself whenever it's something for way younger people, I will approach it cautiously, and then sometimes I end up liking it, like Bluey, for instance. But also that was when I was in the hospital, and I just could not tolerate watching insane stuff.
I
So
I
you were not
watched some
watching
stuff.
this in the hospital.
Yeah,
I watched some
yeah, I would
stuff
not
that's
watch
for
this.
children, right? I watched some Pokemon and Digimon. I don't
Yeah,
watch stuff that's for preschoolers if I'm not
yeah.
with a child.
Well, we used to be honest, have either of you ever seen a booba? It was
I
like
think I saw
the
Booba when it was on because my sister was watching it.
younger version of Teletubbies, where it's literally
Yeah, yeah.
just
They're
like
just like these weird
orbs and they're just going
spheres.
like, "Ah." Used to be some great drug watching back in the day because it
I
was
think
just insane.
Teletubbies was also famous for that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
No, we had Baby Einstein around the house. That's mildly trippy. Just
Hmm.
for little for baby entertaining stuff.
That's supposed to teach children like addition and things like that.
Well, like
No,
actual
Baby
like
Einstein doesn't teach
well,
anything.
complex physics.
It's
Oh,
just
okay,
like
good.
it teaches you to stare at a TV for Baby
Okay.
Einstein. That's the
What if it
basically the
just
point
says
of it.
it teaches you 1 + 1 is 2 over the course of 3 hours?
Yeah,
It's like
probably.
what?
And I've seen a lot of Dora the Explorer. So
I haven't seen any of that.
Hola, soy Dora.
I've watched about half of Skibbity Toilet.
That's what the kids actually like.
Yeah,
Yeah, them
it's
kids
not
into
for
the weird
children.
stuff. Yeah.
It is pretty weird. Much like Perfect Blue. Anyway, um, so now I'm
So
finding it hard
what?
to remember what I wanted to talk about this because, as usual, I just took a bunch of notes that are just the things that happened in the
Mm.
film.
I have some notes like
Um,
that. True fans punch the shit out of each other. There's a note.
yeah, yeah, I really hated all the fans in this. I think more
Oh,
than
there's
ever
the song
because
at the
it's
beginning. The
just
song at the beginning is like almost like "Please stalk us," which I guess is true for a lot of J-pop. But
But yeah, that was an incredible scene where she goes on the internet for the first time and is so happy to see that someone cares about her, and slowly it turns to dread as she realizes
Hmm.
that the person is obsessed with everything that she did. Um,
Actually, going
that's
back to the sort of roomy twist, because of all the information the website has, she kind of is the only. If it wasn't Mima herself, she is the only actual answer that would have made sense. So it's not a complete ass pull
yeah, that makes sense.
because the
Because
website did know every single detail of her life.
I mean, she could have just been that's a good point, and she could have been making the website or just making the website herself
Mhm.
instead of doing her work.
Her
Just
dissociative personality disorder.
yeah. So I watched an interview with Satoshi Kon, and he went into how like what his idea for what this movie actually means is basically not knowing yourself, and then you have to find I wrote this down better. It's about losing yourself and then finding yourself and how only you can do it, nobody else can help you. I really feel like this movie spoke to me a lot because it kind of is about how if you're a really nice person, then you have no boundaries and then anything can happen to you.
Mm.
I cannot say I relate to a J-pop idol or a woman or a celebrity, but or a Japanese person or someone or
You're
someone with
not
an
stalking
assistant
anyone. Is that what you're trying to tell
or
us?
someone who gets stalked or someone who's yeah or someone who has an assistant who's jealous of them or someone who's cast in a creepy movie. Well, okay, no, actually I have been cast in a
You've
creepy
done
movie.
that one, yeah.
So
May-
um
Maybe one day you'll get to stalk somebody.
but I find myself drawn to movies where there's this identity question like Videodrome and Total Recall and um
Well, like the teacher at the end of The Amazing Spider-Man said, there's only one story. Who am I?
Mm.
uh,
Um,
your
Another one that
uncle Ben
popped in
is
my
dead.
head.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
different.
another one that
um
popped in my head was the Next Generation Frame of Mind episode where Riker's in the alien psychiatric ward. Anyone
oh
see that?
yeah,
Mm.
That
where he
that
started
came to mind
hallucinating the whole
watching
time.
Perfect Blue a few times. Yeah, because unreliable narrators, that sort of thing. The
And
end result being something
Every
completely outside.
every long-running sci-fi or fantasy TV show does an episode where it's like, oh, but maybe it's all in their head, and here they are in a psychiatric ward.
Right.
Like Buffy did it, Charmed did it, Star Trek did it, Quantum Leap did it. They all do it.
Right. That just happens to be
well,
maybe my favorite one of those.
Yeah, I remember it being a decent one.
it's a fun trope because you can do that without spending any money, really.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And And also much like Total Recall, how Paul Verhoeven considers that ambiguous, even though Schwarzenegger thinks that everything happened. Um, Cohn has gone on record as saying that he's not. He said something like, "I'm not so sure about the line at the end if she really means it." So
Mm.
so we're supposed to, even though I don't think it does a great job at selling it, it does feel like a happy ending. It is supposed to be a little ambiguous.
I like that because I was watching it being like, this is so sincere that makes it ambiguous again. It's like so sincere
Yeah.
goes back to ambiguous.
Well, like the end of Blue Velvet.
Yeah.
Where like Blue Velvet, the end of Blue Velvet is super bright and colorful, and happy music plays really loud, so it's just terrifying.
Yeah, I feel like the point at the ending of Blue Velvet is like the whole film has been telling you like, oh, there's something shady underneath all of this saccharine sweetness. So by ending on
Yeah.
that saccharine sweetness, if you think it's a happy ending, you didn't get the film, I think is the point.
Yes, and also the protagonist has murdered someone. So you follow
True that.
basically the guy who shot the
And
guy.
stalked a woman. And
Yes. Yes. And cheated on his girlfriend with the woman who was traumatized by Frank. Anyway, that movie should be on the good list.
I
I
think
think
that
it's
there's no
just
Lynch
off
on the
it.
list, right?
No. No,
I
no, good
think
nor bad.
like yeah, that's the thing with Lynch. It's like he's very divisive. He will never end up on either list, but
He got some
that's why
haters.
you like him if you like him.
Right.
Like I don't want to
Sure.
see David Lynch's like here's one for the audience, right?
Well, watch the
Oh,
straight story and see how that goes with you. That's the one where it's like so straight. I mean, it just like you're like, is something going on here? And there's kind of not.
and that one's at an 8.0. So that
With straight
I don't
story.
know. Maybe that'll make it on the list someday, but
What's
I'm
Mulholland
looking at
Drive while you're looking?
Mulholland Drive. God, he has so much little things that he did here and there on here.
Well, you got to keep
Uh,
busy somehow, right?
he's directed 105 things according to IMDb. He's been very busy.
Mm.
Uh,
Uh,
100 and
Okay.
oh yeah, a
The
bunch of
list is
music
too long.
videos.
Yeah,
The list is too long.
the list is too long.
Unfortunately, IMDb doesn't work well enough to actually let me sort things like a normal
Maybe
person.
Wiki was the right
But
place for you. I don't know.
Mulholland Drive 7.9.
I
Okay,
mean, he
that's about the same.
specifically wants the IMDb rating, Matt. So how would Wikipedia help?
Oh yeah, good point.
Well,
Actually,
Wikipedia
they
would
do
have a
tell
link
you.
to the IMDb page.
Yeah,
What's
Lost
the
okay.
Highway
correct one?
7.6. Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me 7.3. I feel like that could end up on the good list
While we're
someday.
oh, I have the other cons right here. Millennium
Yeah.
Actress 7.8,
Mm-hmm.
Tokyo Godfire 7.8, Paprika 7.7. Okay. I mean, they're
Mm-hmm.
all like, kind of
I'm
kicking.
surprised Paprika's so low.
Paprika to me felt like it was holding back, and I can't really elaborate on that. I need to rewatch
Hmm.
that one, but it felt maybe like it felt more like a pilot for a TV series than something with a beginning and ending.
Well,
Um,
we have got Inception on the list eventually, right, Matt?
Yes.
We'll have to do a
nice,
Paprika when we get there.
Yeah.
nice.
Shall we get in as
So
an
yeah,
extra episode?
We'll put a little
we'll put your
paprika on the
Inception in
Inception.
the feed, and you put your old Inception episode on the feed, and I'll just you just cut me in saying things into it, and then we'll do a Paprika episode.
Um, do you have some more big ones you want to throw on this one? I could sit here and read snarky notes all day, but yeah.
I should tell you that I was watching it. I was planning to watch it this weekend properly, like sit down in front of the computer and watch it. But then we went to a wine festival and got smashed.
Mm.
Well, first we went to a
Nice.
frog festival and we went to a little like noodle restaurant, and the proprietor just kept pouring us these big glasses of sake.
Nice.
And then after that, we stumbled across a wine festival, so we went there for dinner. And then yeah, we got home pretty drunk, and we were not going to sit and watch like a very serious anime film.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
so instead, I watched it piecemeal yesterday. Like started it on my lunch break. It's not too much trouble. Watched a little bit, waiting for my train, and then I was watching it on the train, right as like the final act was happening, and her shirt was getting ripped open and her tits were jiggling, and I was like, oh dear.
no way.
I'm gonna wait till we get to the station where half the people get off, and I can sort of sit on my own.
Or you could, no, you wouldn't get off to that scene. Excuse me. I was trying to make a double entendre, and I was like, no, I don't want to make the double
No.
entendre there, I think.
You could
That would
just hope that
that would be an
everybody on the
aspersion on my
train.
character, Matt, and I'm glad you didn't do it.
You just hope that everybody on the train is super cool with anime boobs and they don't care,
It
which
probably
is
are. It's just
a
bad.
I would
It's just
say,
possibility.
just a bunch
especially
of salary men.
especially the
Yeah.
night train.
Well, this movie is it's pretty wild. This movie is now 20, I can't do math. 27 years old.
Good job.
Maybe it would
Good.
be like crossing the road,
Thanks.
and as soon as one person gets like the anime tits out on their phone, everyone feels like they can do it.
Yeah, and then like one guy at the front of the train just
One guy
pulls
just
up
takes it too
Oretsuki
far.
Doji. He pulls up Oretsuki Doji and just starts cranking it and watching demons suck each other's
Ends
whatever
up being a
genitals.
salary man train orgy.
Yeah. Well, that would make a great story for this podcast if it did happen.
Right,
Well,
Matt, cut all that. I'll pretend it did happen. I'll get some clicks.
hell yeah. This is now the Salary Man Orgy podcast.
Mm. So is this one filmy,
Oh,
filthy, filmy,
I mean, it's kind
filmy,
of
filth?
It's
filthy,
a
but
film about the filth of films.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's, I guess we do need
Um,
to acknowledge there are filthy films out there. So
and man, there isn't a whole lot of anime. There still isn't a whole lot of anime like this, and or as far as I know, maybe I'm not getting
There
recommended
is
the
a
right
decent
stuff.
amount of like, you know, set in the real world naturalistic stuff, but I think it tends to just either actually be fantastical or entirely be real. This sort of
Yeah,
ambiguity, I think, is quite rare.
the
yeah.
shit police procedurals are still all over Japanese TV.
They're all over every country's TV. It's just we don't watch TV.
Yeah, well, I stumble. My in-laws are often watching one of shows exactly like this, right? So,
I guess what's interesting about this film is that it's not about the biggest pop star in the world turning to making huge movies. She was like a like unprofitable idol singer who then got like a small role on a crime show. It's never about like when we were talking about Sunset Boulevard, she was the biggest star in the world in the 20s. But this is not about that. This is about like pretty minor celebrity. I guess if you made this film today, she would be
like a
like a minor.
prefectural
No, I was gonna say like a YouTube sort of barely successful
influencer.
influencer who
Mm,
someone gets
Yeah,
obsessed with.
I could see that.
yeah, for
Also,
sure.
I guess there is a
And I
weird thing
think
like you can be an idol or you can act. You can't do both. Like what? And then, but there's lots of male idols. SMAP spent 2 decades being in their band and acting.
Yeah, well, it's a good way to keep the story grounded because it's like a small story with a small. She has a staff with two or three people on it and
Mhm.
is making kind of smutty shit and has the reaction to making smutty shit that most of us would have, but it kind of melts into everything else because
Yeah.
everybody's messing with her head at the same time, and I guess she's not sleeping. It is pretty ambiguous, but it's
There's
like
no
that's the
business
best
like
way to
show
do this.
business.
Like I could definitely pitch the Taylor Swift version of this and it would be very entertaining, but it would also be just like, oh, wait, you have to have a Super Bowl full of people for every scene.
Yeah, it would be
It's
hard.
like,
It would also be harder to like relate to, I think. Like you were
yeah,
saying, like this film is about celebrities, but it's also just about women.
yes,
Like
yes,
her
for sure.
apartment's slightly smaller
Everyone.
than any I've lived in, because it's in
Where it's
Tokyo.
like
But
where it's I hate to quote just some Facebook post, but it's something like if you know a woman and you think that she's never been afraid of a man before, then you're wrong because she
Yeah.
has at some point. It's like some dude has messed with everyone, and I don't have a solution, but we can all suffer together for 90 minutes. I suppose. I don't know. Cut that
Every
out.
time when a man turns
Just kidding.
12, some
Yeah.
of his sperm should be taken so that he can reproduce, and then he should be castrated.
All right. That's fair. It'll be called the bar mitzvah and the brisket combined.
Yeah.
the brisket, it'll be called the brisket.
We'll call it a Hava Nagila.
Hmm. You said you had a 1-star review, so I didn't look for one.
Yeah. Yeah, there's only one that's the right answer. Okay. I'm sorry I saw this movie. Some friends of mine are very into the Japanese style of animation known as anime. I have
Sorry,
always
date the
loathed it.
review. Date the review.
Oh, I'm sorry. November 1999. So this is
Okay.
before I saw the movie
Incredible.
the first time. Nonetheless, I went to see this film with an open mind because my friend who took me promised it was anime for people who don't like anime. Well, at least the Japanese characters look Japanese. Contrary to anime convention, there were no red-headed, blue-eyed characters with Japanese names. Other than that, though, the movie was uniformly awful. All the psycho thriller cliches were there. I knew 20 minutes into the movie how it would all turn out. I don't believe you. The dialogue was awkward too, but that may have just been the translation. But worst of all was the animation. There is little in this film that couldn't have been done better in live action. The only reason to make this film a cartoon was to save money on sets, actors, etc. My friend wants to take me to see Princess Monokoni next week. I think I'll tell him I'm sick. 13 out of 123 found this helpful.
I hope that person died.
They might be dead. It's a while ago.
25 years, 25 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's such, again,
Yeah, he
that's why I
hasn't.
started off like, what was your like 97 perception of anime?
Concept of
Because
anime, yeah.
it's
Yeah.
such a I think it's well, I live in Japan, but I feel like it's a pretty mainstream thing this in Western culture now too.
Yeah. Well, 97, I wasn't watching a whole lot of anime in 97, but
That's my
I was watching
point.
a lot
Like
of anime from 97 between 97 and 2002. So it was a lot of stuff kind of trickled out here.
exactly,
Um,
because I know you started hearing things about anime in the mid 90s, but it was really hard to get hold of it. Again, referencing the Bauhaus
yeah.
being notable as a oh, that's going on, is it?
Well,
I
and
want
and
that seems like one of the biggest generational divides between me and you guys is because Pokemon, Digimon, and Dragon Ball happened. Like at least a small slither of anime was completely mainstream by the time I was like 10, 11, 12. And then, sure, there's stuff like this was a little bit more obscure, but like there was no one who hadn't watched any anime.
In
yeah,
97 for sure, there are people who had never seen any
Right,
anime.
yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
that's the big thing that changed because of them silly little monsters.
yeah, I mean, Akira and Ghost in the Shell, most people had seen those by 2000, I would say, but still, I saw Akira in, I don't know, 95, 94. That was
Hmm.
still pretty late.
You probably saw it like on a dubbed VHS though, right?
Oh, no, dude,
I
laser
mean
disc.
copied. Oh, okay.
Laser
Laser disc with
disc,
Oh,
nice.
you're
subtitles, baby.
you're hanging out with a movie dork crowd. Okay.
Yes, I was. In fact, my friend Johnny, shout outs to him. He had a dentist chair. You could just sit in the dentist chair, and he had a big subwoofer, and you could just
Oh,
sit
I
in the
must have
dentist
been there. I
chair and have
remember a dentist chair,
it might have been there. That's
yeah.
where a lot of our GoldenEye death matching was going on during
Oh,
that
Incredible.
okay.
period.
Yeah, I must have
Yeah,
been around for
split
one of
screen.
those.
He at one point he rented a game from Blockbuster and opened the cartridge and put another game in it, returned the wrong game. I can't remember what it was. I think it was Mortal Kombat where he like switched it out for something
Well, like
better.
switch the chips inside the cartridge.
Uh-huh. You could just
King
take the
shit.
shell off.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was like, "Hey man, this says it's something or other, but it's Mortal Kombat. What's going on?"
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I was always at least trying to be in the cutting edge of stuff. But Luke, what was your Dragon Ball journey? Because we didn't get any of it until like 96, and it was this weird
That's it. I
bad
got
dub.
we got all of it after Pokemon. Pokemon and
Oh,
Digimon hit
okay.
around like 99, 2000. And then I mean I think Dragon Ball had been running a bit before that, but it was suddenly like popular. But it was only on Sky TV in the UK, which is like the paid satellite channels.
It
So
was
I would watch little bits of it at like my grandmother's house or whatever. And I didn't get it. It was years later that I
well,
watched Dragon Ball and actually got it.
well, it was insane because we would hang out with our friend Dan. Shout outs to him if he's listening or if he's not listening. But we'd hang out over at his place, and
No,
they
if he's
were
not listening,
playing.
fuck him.
All right, fair
Shout out
enough.
retracted if he's not listening.
Shout out retracted. um,
And
no,
he
we would hang
can't
out at
get
his
mad
house.
because if he's listening, then he's being shouted out.
Yeah,
And if he's
Good
not being
point.
shouted out, he didn't hear it. So,
right.
Yeah, and if you're
everyone's a winner,
listening,
baby.
yeah, if you're listening like 10 years from now, then you shout out reinstated.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, we were watching like the first arc of that show, which, as most people know, not a huge spoiler, Goku dies in like the fourth episode, and he's
Mm-hmm.
dead for most of the first like three arcs of the show. but they edited every reference to death out. And so everyone would keep saying, Goku's in outer space. But he was like clearly in the afterlife. So we were just so fucking confused where in outer space he was that he was running around a bunch of clouds and stuff. It was just that it had been edited so much that it was incredibly confusing. And then I picked it back up when they did a better dub many years later. But this was still the original show was done airing in 95. So
Hmm.
it was this weird thing where the West got it way after it came out. But that was, I don't know, that was an interesting way for a lot of us to absorb anime because it was just sort of
No,
most people
weirdly,
remember the bad dub with the over 9,000 line and everything.
weirdly, the one anime I did catch as a kid was Space Battleship Yamato, which they showed on one of the UHF stations as Star Blazer, where they took out all the deaths and robot leching on the female crew member. Those were cut
Hmm.
from the American version. I watched the Japanese version 10 years ago where it does have all that.
How
I need to
about the
watch
fact
that.
that it's about a World War II battleship? Did they leave that in?
Well, that's kind of hard to get rid of,
Hmm.
right? I don't think they called it Yamato though in Star Blazers. I think it had a different
Hmm.
name.
They called it
Hmm,
the
that's
USS Indianapolis.
yes,
I can
exactly.
see what they called it. Yeah, sure.
Space battleship Indianapolis. They're all like throwing guys out of the airlock. Um, do you guys have any anime you're watching now? Just to keep it on this, like any series lately?
I have trouble actually really grasping onto anime series for some reason. I can tell you one sitting around that I haven't watched that are in the room.
Ah,
I tend to be more of a manga reader because I can read so much faster than I can watch an anime. So I'm working on One Piece as we speak because I like the live action one so much.
awesome.
I've me and Mercy have been watching all the Ghibli movies because she's a big fan and I hadn't watched most of them.
Oh, I also
Um,
haven't watched most of them, and I'm going to try to cram a bunch of them before we record our Princess Mononoke episode.
yeah. Oh, which I once we stop recording, remind me to talk to you about dates because I've spoken to Jay.
Okay.
Cool.
Um, and then
But
I've been watched a little bit of Kaiju number 8,
I
and
don't
of
know about
course I'm
that.
still watching Digimon.
All right.
Kaiju
so
number 8 is like Attack on Titan if it was a goofy comedy.
Oh, cool. I'll look into that. I know I want to
Episode 2
see.
has a guy pissing out of his nipples. So,
Oh yeah, sold.
um
I know I want to watch Delicious in Dungeon,
oh, Mercy's
and
big into that. Yeah, if she was
yeah,
here for this question, it would be a much deeper conversation.
yeah, I definitely want to watch that. And one of my favorite animes of the last like decade, Doro Hedoro, is getting a second season, which I'm
Mm.
incredibly hyped about. I know Chainsaw Man is coming back, which I enjoyed a lot.
so I should just
Either
go
you
see
guys
what
seen?
my daughter's watching, you know?
Oh yeah, have you seen Doro Hedoro? Your daughter's
No,
probably not watching that.
this is my first time hearing of it.
It's basically a guy um was turned into a dragon, but there's also a guy inside of his stomach who remembers what the guy who turned him into a dragon looked like. So he goes around just beating the shit out of people and like swallowing their entire head so that the guy inside of his stomach can tell him if it's the guy who turned him into a dragon or not. And his girlfriend is a gyoza chef, and basically the original manga was written by a woman, and all the female characters are incredibly buff, like huge, like bruiser
Amazing.
characters, and they're fucking great. And the main bad guy of the first season is just this guy who turns everything into mushrooms, and everybody's really depressed and ridiculous, and it's a very good series. I recommend that to anybody who is over 17. It is pretty violent. Or
Just to
I don't know,
throw it
over
out
10.
there, in Star Blazers, the Yamato is renamed the Argo. So they did
Oh,
try and obscure that.
so Ben Affleck is there. I've never seen Argo.
Right.
I've seen
I'm
Jason and the
just like,
Argonauts.
oh, there you go.
I think is what it's actually referencing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You folks want to wrap this guy up for today?
All right.
Yeah.
Do some rapping?
Thanks for coming to my birthday party. If you live in Atlanta, I'll be in the Southern Fried Gaming Expo, not doing any panels or anything, but I'll just be hanging out. Come say hi. Aside from that, you can find us at patreon.com/podcastio server money, outtakes, more podcast links. We've got it all. Luke Loves Pokemon, Game Show, Time Enough podcast about the Twilight Zone, a cult Disney about Disney, and you can listen to all of Hyrule Field Report and all of Monster Mash so far.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and till next time, don't get a manager who's jealous of you.
Are you the real Mark Malik?
No, yes, it's me.
No, yes. You
Yes,
said no
I
first.
just
You said no first.
I'm trying to be ambiguous.
Coming up in a couple months, we got my birthday, and Mark, you inspired my choice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you said in the Neverending Story episode that you hate stories where like the kid makes a wish that cures their parents' marriage or whatever.
Uh-huh.
So we're doing the recent Digimon movie, which
All
has a
right.
fucking insane twist on that concept.
All right, cool. I'm excited. I've never seen any Digimon, and
It's going to
I
be a
want to
really
know.
weird place to start, but I think you'll actually dig this one.
Cool.
Just make sure and get hold of that one reasonably easily.
You
Or
The-
it it's very piratable, dude.
okay,
It's a
okay.
popular series.
yeah, I've been meaning to get into Digimon in general. All the games keep going on sale, but I have so much shit to play. Like I've played a little bit of Monster Hunter, but now the Elden Ring DLC is out, and I
I
have other
I'm
stuff.
The reason I was late was partly due to Zoom updates, but also I beat a boss at like exactly 8:30 and then turned on my laptop. So
So
yeah, I've been on that Elden Ring.
yeah, I've only beaten three or four things, but man, that fucking Wicker Man is pretty sick.
I loved that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's super good. I didn't get like caught, but he did grab my mimic tier and put him into his
Oh, I
fucking.
got caught the first time I fought it.
I kind of spoiled myself. I saw a Twitter post where somebody was like, "Well, this happened," and it just showed him
I
going.
haven't seen
No,
anything of this game yet. I plan to
man,
keep it that way.
that's a good call because well, I've mostly remained unspoiled, but
Hmm.
aside from in game where messages say things, which is probably the right way to play. But man, it's a lot more fun playing that game than it is reading people being mad about the DLC.
I didn't know people were, and I don't want to.
Yeah, don't spoil yourself on that either.
Hey,
That we're talking
listeners,
about on
try
here.
finger butthole.
Yeah,
What,
yeah,
huh?
yeah. That's my first from DLC, and I'm having no problem with it, enjoying every second. So yeah,
Oh, what were you
people
gonna
are
say about
wrong.
before we
Oh yeah.
don't
You can pit stop on the record, Matt.
oh yeah, sure. I mean this is
Even the
the
Patreons need to hear this.